Okay, so for our first clay project, we kind of wanted to find something that was easy enough for people who didn't have experience with clay, but could be complex enough for people who have more experience. So what we decided on was making clay whistles. Basically what it is, it's a little hollowed out clay form that has a kind of a special mouthpiece that, you know, when you blow in it, it makes a whistling noise, right? So here's some examples. These are more complicated. They have multiple holes, but you can see that this part, this is the mouthpiece, right? So you blow into here, and then, you know, the air will come out, and you can cover these holes to make different tones, right? So these are more kind of traditional ones. They're almost like artifacts. So that's one kind of example, but it could also be something like this. So a lot of the examples that we saw online were like animals. And you can do an animal if you like. A lot of times like the tail is kind of a good place to do the mouthpiece. And then you can have this kind of functional sculpture, you know, because it works as a sculpture in the sense that it's like this cool little object, but it also has a function, which is to make noise, to make music. Okay, this one's like, I think it's kind of surreal because it looks like a lamb, but it doesn't have any back feet. It looks like it just goes into the whistle. There's another one that's a goat. Again, the tail is the mouthpiece part, and then you have holes on the side. One thing you'll see when we start making the whistles is sometimes you need to poke those holes so that more air can come out for it to make that noise. Otherwise, it sometimes just sounds muddled. There's a fox. Also, tail is the mouthpiece. And you can see these all have the same function, but the form is very different. So you can make something very original whenever you're interested in. So this one's a hamburger. So yeah, so this one's kind of funny. You can see at the end over there, that part sticking off on the left is like the mouthpiece. So it's also something to think about if you are making like something that's, you know, doesn't have a natural part that comes out. Where is it that you can put the mouthpiece that it would make sense? So here it makes sense because if you think about how you would hold it to play it, it's almost like you're about to take a bite out of the hamburger, you know, and that's where you put your mouth on the mouthpiece. Okay? So if we look at the basic form of what it is that's going to make the noise, is we need something that's hollow, right? So this would be like if you made a hollow ball out of clay and cut it in half, this is what you're looking at. These are the outer walls, this is the hollow inside part, okay? And what we want to add to it is this. This is the mouthpiece part, okay? So this you're going to blow into here, and then, you know, the air is going to bounce around and make noise. The thing that actually makes the noise is the way that the air is cutting one side of the clay form, okay? So it'll be easier to understand once you see it, but basically the air has to come in and cut, you know, it has to hit this kind of angle right here, and that's what makes the whistling noise, okay? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to make a little channel within the clay, a hollowed out channel, to force the air to hit this spot, okay? And once it hits that spot, it'll make that sound. So right here is the cross section. This is where you blow in. This is where it cuts to make that noise, and then this is kind of the hollow space that determines kind of the pitch of the noise, okay? So keep that in mind. If you don't understand just yet, that's okay, because it's coming, okay? So here's my clay. It's not a whole lot, but it's only for demonstration purposes. And what I'm going to do first is make my round shape, and then I'm going to add on the mouthpiece, okay? And there are a couple of different ways you can do that. I like to sometimes make a ball more or less the size that I want, and then cut it in half and hollow it out. But today I'm going to show you a different technique, which is kind of it's called making like a pinch pot. Which basically you're just pinching the clay in a kind of a circular motion until you have more or less a bowl. Okay? So I'm going to start with that. I just stick my thumb in there and start working around the clay until I have more or less half of a bowl. Okay? Right? Now this clay is a little bit dried out. You can see it's starting to crack a little bit, but I think for our purposes it'll work. So next I'm going to go ahead and make that other half. So I'm going to take just about the same amount of clay, a little bit more, okay, and go ahead and make another pinch pot. So I'll just stick my thumb in and work it around. Thank you. Okay. We have more or less another bowl shape. Okay? So these more or less are going to fit together like that. All right? Now, one of the most important kind of basic techniques in working with clay is a technique that you're going to use to join two pieces of clay together. And this is going to be with literally any two pieces of clay that you join together, okay? And that's scoring, slipping, and welding, okay? Score, slip, and weld. You can use those score tools that Ms. Russell showed you, or I like to just use a pen tool. So basically the scoring part is we're just scratching the surface of the clay so that it has a kind of a more varied kind of surface, right? So if you stick kind of two flat things together, they don't tend to hold together very well in the long run, okay? But if you stick two things together that have kind of a lot of little grooves and a lot of little notches to where they can really connect to each other, it ends up working a lot better, okay? So this is the scoring part, just scoring these two. Okay, and I forgot to grab slip. So slip basically is just kind of a really runny, watered down clay, and it works very well for joining two pieces together because it kind of helps fill in those cracks that you just made, okay? So I'll take a good bit of it and put it around. A bit more, right there. Okay, so this is the slipping part. So score, slip, and weld. Do the score, that's the slip. And next, we put them together and we're going to weld. Now welding is just when you take two pieces and you just kind of mush them together, right? Here's where the slip helps a little bit too because it softens up that edge and makes it easier to put the two pieces together. A tool like this, a wooden tool, is also really good for welding, particularly this end here, because this more or less just acts the same way that your finger does, except for it's more uniform in shape and it's smaller, so it can kind of push different quantities of clay around. So we're just going to weld here, just like that. All the way around. Now I'm doing it kind of fast, just for demonstration purposes, but you can definitely go slower, take your time, make that seam really nice. Another thing with clay, as you start working with it, you're going to see how quickly it dries out. Your hands kind of draw out the moisture of it. So you always want to have a little bit of water. You know, 2 or 3 people can share one little cup of water, and you can smooth it out. Okay? So, now we have our hollowed out form. Kind of lumpy and it's kind of rough around the edges, but it works for demonstration purposes, okay? So next, what we need is the mouthpiece part. Basically that mouthpiece, you know, looks more or less like that, but it doesn't have to necessarily be that scale, right? So I'm just gonna take a chunk of clay and I'm gonna roll it out more or less into a small cylinder. Something more or less like that. And again, when you have your designs picked out, it'll kind of be apparent what kind of size and shape you're going to need your mouthpiece to be. But just for basic ball, regular looking whistle, this is just fine. So I've bent this edge at around just about 45 degrees because when I put it in, see, it's going to have to mirror that kind of roundness of the clay ball. Okay. So just like before, we're joining two pieces together. So we're going to score, and I want it more or less here. So I'm going to score there. And we're going to put some slip. Together. And I'm going to weld. This tool comes in handy a lot when you're putting the mouthpiece on because it's hard to get your finger in there. So you have really small fingers. That's hard. Okay. All right. So, going back to our model, this is what we have. Okay? So now what we need to do is make this channel and carve this part out at that angle. What we need for that is a popsicle stick. Now, basically what I'm going to do is put the popsicle stick in and leave it in while I carve out that channel using the pin tool. Okay? This is the part that's going to be the most difficult, I think, because it depends on how thick your walls are, but you may have to go in and hollow out and kind of clean out that part. Okay? So we'll show you at first. The basic technique is always going to be the same, but there's always going to be kind of troubleshooting and kind of repair that you're going to have to do afterwards. Okay? And we'll definitely help you out with that. So just put it in. And you see how it went faster there? I can feel that I've cut into this open part. Okay? So now it's in there and we're right about there. Okay? Now, with the pen tool, I want to come in at more or less 45-degree angle, like this, into the clay to cut that channel. So I know my popsicle stick is right about there. That's where it ends. So maybe something like that, and I can feel it. I can't go any further because I'm hitting the popsicle stick. That's what we want. Okay? So I'm just going to kind of carve out a little bit here, almost like you're making a little hole. So I'm using a kind of a circular motion to dig out the clay there. It's going to end up making that noise. So you can see that light part there? That's the popsicle stick. So I know I've gotten through, and I know that my angle is more or less good right here. The hole could probably be a little bit bigger. Now this probably, I can try it, but it's probably not going to do anything. Nope, nothing. So I'm going to put the popsicle stick back in and kind of clean up that channel. One more time, but I think we might also have to poke some holes in it. We're close. What I would do now is let's test if we add some holes, if we have any improved sound function. Okay? So I think I might try this. This is a small loop tool, so I can use this to kind of dig in there and poke out a little hole. So I'm thinking if I have my fingers here, more or less, I can say put one here. Just try. So we have sound, and that is the good sound that we're looking for. Now, what you can do is poke another hole, see if you can get another tone. Okay. That seems like maybe it was too much. So I know this is too big of a hole, so I'm just gonna plug that. Okay. And if you wanted to have some, tonal range, you could maybe make this hole a little bit smaller or poke another smaller hole. Let's try poking another smaller hole, see if we can. So we have two tones now, okay? Yeah, so that's your basic clay whistle, okay?